Okay, now imagine this. You're 20 years old, standing in the heart of Rome, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, inside one of tennis's most iconic arenas. The red clay of the Foro Italico still clings to your shoes. The evening sun is beginning to fade. Around the stadium, fans who traveled thousands of miles are slowly folding up Philippine flags, holding them close like they don't want the moment to end. Your tournament is over. You gave everything you had. You pushed the world number 2 to the limit. You fought through long rallies, absorbed relentless pressure, and proved you belonged on that court. Yes, you lost, but this didn't feel like defeat. It felt like arrival. And then, just when the week seemed finished, the phone rang, and suddenly, everything changed. That's exactly where Alex Eala found herself after an unforgettable week in Rome. And if you thought the Italian Open was the headline, the real story was only beginning. Because to understand why this moment matters, you have to go back to where the week started. Alex entered Rome, ranked number 42 in the world. That's a strong ranking, but in the WTA, it doesn't guarantee comfort. It doesn't guarantee protection. Every tournament still feels like an audition. One bad match, one injury, one off day and momentum disappears fast. And clay courts make everything harder. Clay slows the ball down, rallies become longer, movement becomes more demanding. Players who thrive on hard courts often struggle to adjust because nothing comes quickly on clay. Every point has to be built patiently. But Alex looked ready from the start. Her opening match immediately carried emotional weight. Across the net stood Wang Xinyu, the 31st seed, the same player who had beaten Alex earlier in the season in Auckland. That loss clearly stayed with her. Some defeats fade away. Others sit quietly in your mind, waiting for another chance. Rome became that chance. And Alex took it. She defeated Wang Xinyu in straight sets with calmness and precision, controlling the match with maturity far beyond her age. Inside the Foro Italico, Philippine fans exploded with emotion. Chants of Laban! Alex! Echoed through a stadium that has witnessed generations of tennis greatness. What made the moment special wasn't marketing hype. It was genuine connection. Many of the fans in the crowd were overseas, Filipinos who traveled across Europe just to support someone who makes them feel represented on one of sport's biggest stages. That kind of support can't be manufactured. It comes from people seeing part of themselves in an athlete's journey. Then it came the real test. Elena Rybakina, world number 2, one of the most dangerous hitters in women's tennis. Facing Rybakina on any surface is intimidating. Facing her on clay is even harder because her power becomes suffocating when she controls rallies early. But once again, Alex refused to shrink under the spotlight. The final score was 6-4, 6-3 in Rybakina's favor, yet the match told a deeper story. It lasted 1 hour and 32 minutes, proof that Alex wasn't simply surviving out there. She was competing. She forced extended rallies. She created uncomfortable moments. She made one of the world's best players work for every game. And when you watch the match closely, you don't see a lucky underdog anymore. You see someone who belongs at this level. That's why leaving Rome with 65 ranking points and a jump from number 42 to number 38 felt bigger than the numbers themselves. It felt like another confirmation that Alex Eala is no longer just a promising talent. She's becoming a real presence on the WTA tour. The tournament ended. The team started mentally preparing for the next stop on the calendar.
Elena Rybakina versus Alex Eala with a blockbuster third-round matchup over in Rome for 2026. Both players are having solid clay court seasons. Eala entered the tournament as the number 42 in the world with a 16-win, 11-loss season so far. Her best result was making the quarterfinals in that 1,000 event in Dubai, ending up losing to Goff in the end in straight sets. But her best win actually came at Indian Wells a month later, where she took out Goff, number 4 in the world at the time. Her worst loss is still that loss against Parks at the Australian Open, who was 99 in the water at the time. Her form hasn't been great on the clay, but she is coming off 2 really solid wins this week so far, so her confidence is an all-time high on this surface. Rybakina entered the tournament as the number 2 in the world with a 27-win, 6-loss record so far. Her best result was winning the Australian Open, beating Sabalenka in that final in a close 3-setter, and that was her best win of the season as well at the Australian Open there in January. Her worst loss actually came last week in Madrid, where she lost to Potapova, who was 56 in the world at the time. Her form's been great. She did win in Stuttgart earlier in the clay court season, and of course has won a lot of tennis matches this year, so really looks one of the favourites going into Roland Garros, but also really rates her chances of winning this tournament. These two have never played before, no surprise there. Eala has played a few top 10 players now, but hasn't quite played Rybakina yet, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this one plays out and see how Eala can deal with Rybakina's power. If Eala's going to win this one, she needs to be at a defensive best, and she needs to use a bit of variety. She was hitting some really nice drop shots against Wong in the previous round, but she really needs to be at her best and probably hope that Rybakina is maybe a little bit off like she was last week if she's going to get the win. Rybakina's going to win this one. She needs to serve well and be aggressive like she has been doing over the last couple of matches and over the last couple of tournaments. She's been really, really solid this year. Obviously, the confidence is there. She's rising up the rankings, so she's up to number 2 now, which is a career high for her. So really, just needs to play her game and she should be able to get the win. Interesting matchup here. Really keen to see how Eala can do against Rybakina in this one, but I can't go past Rybakina in a close straight set. So I reckon the power of Rybakina is unlike what Eala's played against so far in her career. So she's going to have to deal with someone that she's never played before, who's at the peak of their powers, and I think it's just going to be Rybakina in a straight sets, but close straight sets. I reckon Eala will maybe surprise a few people, but let me know in the comments below. Who is going to win this one?
Then the phone rang. The call reportedly came from WTA officials in St. Petersburg, Florida. The message was almost unbelievable. Alex Eala had been awarded a wild card into the 2026 US Open main draw. Not qualifying. Not a smaller tournament. The US Open, Flushing Meadows, New York City, one of the biggest stages in sports. And that matters more than casual fans may realize. Grand Slam wildcards are incredibly valuable. They are not handed out casually. A main draw wildcard means Alex avoids the brutal qualifying rounds entirely. Instead of battling through exhausting matches in late August New York heat, she'll arrive early, fresh, and fully focused on preparation. That advantage can completely change a player's tournament. So why Alex? Because this decision wasn't only about rankings. It was about momentum. It was about impact. And it was about what Alex has become over the last 14 months. Not long ago, she was ranked outside the top 140. Since then, she has climbed more than 100 spots in the rankings while producing deep runs at major tournaments. She reached the semifinals in Miami. She made noise in Dubai. She has beaten top-level opponents consistently enough that people no longer view her success as a surprise. Now they expect her to compete. And the WTA has clearly noticed something else too. People care when Alex Eala plays. The crowds in Rome proved it. The Philippine flags. The chants. The emotional investment from fans around the world. Tennis organizations pay attention to moments like that because they understand something important. Sports are not only about rankings. They're also about connection. And Alex is building one of the strongest emotional connections in women's tennis right now. That's exactly the kind of story the US Open loves. New York embraces players who carry passion, identity, and momentum into the tournament. And Alex arrives carrying the hopes of an entire country that has waited a long time for a tennis player capable of reaching this level. Now comes the next challenge. Before New York, Alex will continue through the grass court season, including Birmingham and Wimbledon preparation. Grass changes everything. Points become quicker. Movement becomes more dangerous. Aggression matters more. But one of the most underrated parts of Alex's rise is her adaptability. She doesn't rely on one style alone. On clay, she showed patience and discipline. On hard courts, she plays with freedom and confidence. That versatility is becoming one of her biggest strengths. And hard courts are where the future gets really interesting. Because historically, that's where Alex has looked most comfortable. Miami, Dubai. Her biggest wins. Her most confident tennis. Everything suggests that when she walks into Flushing Meadows later this year, she'll arrive with more belief, more experience, and more momentum than ever before. And then there's the crowd. The Philippine community in New York is massive. Once the US Open begins, support for Alex will likely be overwhelming. If Rome sounded loud, imagine what Arthur Ashe Stadium could feel like, with thousands of fans behind her. That's where this story becomes fascinating. There's one version where Alex wins a few matches, gains experience, improves her ranking, and continues building toward the future. That alone would already be a success. But there's another version, a version where a rising player arrives on her best surface with confidence, momentum, crowd support, and absolutely nothing to fear. And tennis history has shown many times that New York is where unexpected stories become unforgettable ones.